Our model used to be where people would join and they would front load. How many of you remember front loading in the 80s? You got a couple of hands. And what that meant was that people had to buy $2,000 to $3,000 or $4,000 worth of product up front and then try to move it. But typically they moved it by signing up other distributors and passing it along, right? But that was all we knew. And the technology wasn't there for anything better. Then we moved into something called internal consumption. And internal consumption meant sign up as many distributors as you can, get them on autoship, and we have a huge organization. And that was the best we could do at the time. But now we have technology that allows us to really go out and get customers. One of the trends that we've seen in direct selling, based on the statistics from the DSA and the organizations that track this, is that the average sale per distributor, the average volume, has been slightly going down over the years. And that's not a trend that we want to continue to see. Would you agree? So how do we turn that trend around? I'll go back to the Elmo here and just share with you what I'm seeing in our profession already. Let's say a customer does just $10 a month in orders. There it is. Could you see an average $10 a month order? It's probably low, would you agree? But I just want to keep it simple, $10. So if your goal was to get $10,000 in volume, if we only had an internal model, we would have to have 1,000 distributors. Let's say distributors did only $10. So you'd have to have 1,000 distributors to get 10,000 in volume. Now, if we had each distributor have 10 customers, then we would only need how many? We'd need 100 distributors, DT for distributor, to create 10,000 in volume. Now, what if every one of them got 25 customers? And I'm not saying they have to get 25 customers a month. I'm saying over their lifespan of being a distributor, we get 25 customers. Do you think you could get 25 customers in 2 years? Yeah? I think that's completely reasonable. I think a restaurant would go out of business if they had 25 customers in 2 years. But let's say it's 25 customers. Let's say you average 25 customers. Well, 25 customers, then you would only have to have 40 distributors to create the same amount of volume. What's easier to work with? 100 distributors or 40? 1,000 distributors or 40? 40, right? So one of the trends that we're seeing is that we may even see conventions that have fewer people at them, distributors, but overall, those teams are doing more volume. Would that be okay? That's okay because it's easier. Would you agree? So what if we had 50 customers per distributor? Wow, wouldn't that be amazing? Well, when we hit 50 customers per distributor average, we're only going to need how many? 20 distributors for the same amount of volume. So if we only need 20, do you think those 20 might be making some money? Right? So now the average number of people in your team is making money. So now all of that ridicule, where so many people join and so few make money, starts to shift into our favor, doesn't it? We say, hey, all these people are joining, and a lot of them are making money. Would that feel nice? Here's what I can tell you. Is in this audience, on the platform this weekend, we've got people that are doing anywhere from 14 million a year in sales to 100 million a year in sales to 500 million, 700 million a year in sales. We have one of our presenters that has $1 billion a year in sales in his organization. These are big numbers. And the presenters have organizations where 50, 60, 75% of their volume comes from customers. You see, one of the trends that we're seeing is that the companies that have embraced customer acquisition and a customer culture have actually been growing very consistently and retaining the volume that they've been growing. How many of you would enjoy that? Yeah? And many of you already are. I know this coming year, many companies are already making those changes coming up in their convention if they haven't. So the good news is this is where the entire profession is going in the United States and Europe. Now, if we get to 50 customers average, then the profession becomes self-evident. Then we become as known as an Uber. Because Uber didn't have to go out there and say, hey, we're good, right? They had to change a couple politicians' views about allowing them to exist. But how many of you want to go back to the taxi system once you've driven in an Uber? No, right? Especially the ladies, like, no way. Well, our profession, leading with not exaggerated income claims, leading with a customer model, in my opinion, getting rid of all the stuff, some of the stuff from the 90s that I mentioned, we're going to overcome the existing, and it's not a prejudice by everybody, but some people have a prejudice against their profession. We're going to overcome that through this kind of excellence.